Hey there, fellow sea glass lovers. This is Jackie, and this is part 3 in my Lighthouse Workshop series, where I'm going to show you how to create a sea glass mosaic on this vintage 6-pane window. Now, this is a fairly large window. This measures 31.5 inches wide and 27 inches tall. And in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about the importance of choosing and preparing your frame before you start. So, choosing a frame. I'm going to encourage you to go large with this project. We are doing mosaic art, and in mosaic art you take a whole bunch of tiny little pieces and you put them together so that your finished art piece reads as one piece. So what I call the mosaic effect. So the mosaic effect, where you look at each individual piece and it may seem fairly ordinary, you put it all together and you create something extraordinary. Now, the mosaic effect is much more effective in a large piece than a small piece. When you're working a small piece, you have to be very particular about how you arrange pieces so that you really get a good mosaic effect. You can get away with a lot less fussing in a large piece. It may take you a lot longer and more materials, but a large piece is really going to pay off in the end. So consider the larger, the better. So I know I want to hang my finished mosaic in this window. So when I was trying to pick a frame, I have quite a few vintage windows. So I wanted to hold my windows up and see what fit. So I put that one up there and I thought, nope, that one's a little bit too small. So that one got rejected. And I tried this one, which I thought was the right width, but not quite tall enough to really show nicely in that window. And then I had this one. And I thought, yes, that one fits just right in that window. So I decided to go with that window for my project. So consider, before you decide what you're going to use for a frame, consider where you want to hang it and how it fits in that space. Now you need to clean up your frame, and this is kind of a messy job, so I've come out into my garage. Now this frame that I've decided to use, I had previously cleaned it up and fixed up all the messy bits, and I painted it, so it's all ready to go. So I'm just going to set that one aside because I do want to show you what you need to do. And I thought, this is a frame that I absolutely love, and I'm going to use it sometime, and it hasn't had any cleaning done. So I'm going to use this to show you all the things that you need to be attentive to when you're cleaning up a frame and getting it ready for a mosaic. So for this, you're going to need your Orbital sander. I like to use the Orbital sander because it does a really good job. And I always have a little sanding block as well to get into any corners. You need a bit of a glass scraper. I can't find my holder, but I found my replacement blade, so I'm just going to use that blade for a glass scraper. And make sure when you're doing orbital sanding you have a mask, because a lot of these old frames have lead paint in them and you don't want to inhale any of the lead dust. So the first thing I'm going to do, before I even bother cleaning it, you'll also need some Windex and basic cleaner and that type of thing. But first, to clean it, I'm going to do my orbital sanding. So I'm just going to take my sander and sand off any little loose bits of paint. And sometimes I find with these old windows there's a little bit of old caulking on there that sands off fairly easily, and sometimes there's some real black kind of moldy stuff. So get all of that messy bit cleaned up. Get my mask on here and just go to town with it. So I'm really liking how this is looking, so I'm not going to do any more sanding on it. Once you get your loose paint off, you can leave as much or as little of the original paint as you like. I'm really liking how this looks. And if you look at this old window clasp there, I just love that. It's really cool. So I think I'm going to leave that like it is, and I'm not going to paint it. Like the one that I'm using for this project, that one did not look nice once I was cleaning it up, so I did paint it, but I'm liking the look of this one. And if you turn it around to the back, I found it interesting to discover that on the back, once I got sanding some of that paint off, there was a bit of red paint underneath, which I thought looked super cool. So the other thing you need to do here is take your glass or your paint scraper and glass scraper, whatever you want to call it, and go around and scrape off all that old paint. I'm going to have to put my mask back on to do this as well, because again, you're releasing some of that lead dust. So the other thing you'll have to do is any repairs to the frame itself. You might need to break out the hammer and nails. I can see where somebody put a few nails in this frame before. It probably needed to be reinforced at some point. And the thing that I do need to do, I did find when I was cleaning up that some of the caulking along the window popped off because it was all dried out. And this often happens with these old windows. So I just take some sealant here, or silicone or caulking, whatever you want to use. Now I usually use white for this, but this isn't exactly white paint, so I'm just going to use a clear one, and I'm just going to reinforce where that caulking was. This is going on white, but it's going to dry clear, and it's just going to make sure that that window frame stays really good and secure over the course of time, because I want my window to last. I don't want it kind of starting to fall apart, and I don't want more pieces falling off. So just doing some reinforcement in those weak spots is really important. The other thing that I found on this window, and this happens, whoops, this happens to me quite a bit. When I get these old windows, there's a crack in the glass. Now, this does not mean I can't use this window. What I do when I get those cracks, I don't use the window if the glass is really badly broken, or I'll replace the glass. But if there's just a little crack like that, I can work with it just fine. So I put a bit of silicone along there, or caulking. This is going to dry clear, so it won't really be noticeable from the front. And then when I'm putting on my pieces of sea glass, I put sea glass right along that crack to really make it blend as well, so you don't really see the silicone that's along the back of the window. And it's held up for me every time. I haven't had any problems once I've done that. So do your repairs and your window's going to be all set to go. The only other thing that I'll have to do with this one is I'll let that silicone set, and then I'm going to give it a really good cleaning before I use it. But in the meantime, I'm going to take that window and set it aside, and I'm going to get back to the window I'm using for this project, which has already been cleaned up. I painted this one because I like the look of it painted, and it's going to suit for the project I'm doing. And all I have to do is give the glass a really good cleaning before I get going. So thanks so much for joining me for this video, number 3 in my Lighthouse Workshop series. So be sure to join me for part 4 when I show you how to do the pattern for this sea glass mosaic. And in the meantime, I hope you make it out to the beach, and happy sea glass hunting.